Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm your host, Tyler. We are joined this week by the Gameresque podcast. We've been talking about it for a little while now.
What's up?
So we got Zach, and then we also got Jonny. Say hi, Jonny.
That's right. Hi, Jonny. How are we?
Good job. We're doing good, man. We're doing good. We recently, you may have listened to our episode on the March Madness bracket for the greatest game of all time. We totally ripped that off of these intelligent men that are joining us today, and we thought we'd get a chance to share some games with them. They shared Spider-Man with us. Definitely go check out that episode. This is going to be a two-parter. It's going to be on their feed at Gameresque Pod. You can follow them. Definitely follow them. They're fantastic. And providing a really good perspective. And we are sharing Portal 2, one of our all-time favorite games with them. We really felt they could get a good kick out of this game.
Four.
Yeah, that was our top choice for that bracket, actually.
Wow, it made it to the Final Four. It won its division.
It didn't make it out of the first round for us, I'm pretty sure.
Guys, it was Portal 2 and Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, which we haven't played Mass Effect 2, so it's amazing Mass Effect 2 made it that far. We let it ride
all the way up. Mass Effect 2 made it all the way up on its reputation. Neither of us had played it. But when it came down to it, Portal 2, I think, is one of the greatest games.
We even put it, this is a step too far for you guys, but we put it above Skyrim. Which is
I know. I'm looking at the bracket now.
You guys.
I can hear it.
One of my favorite things that we did. I wasn't even going to make a case for Portal 2. I thought it was, I was just going to take it laying down. But Zach said, I kind of want to give it to Portal 2. And yes, thank you. The Lord has spoken.
We love Portal 2.
Amazing. Skyrim, for the record, #1 overall seed in that bracket. Based on the algorithm that we made, that had the highest score. We factored in Metacritic score, sales, and it was all considered with Game of the Year awards. It was won and all of that, and Skyrim was the #1 overall seed, and it didn't even make it out of its division due to the juggernaut that is Portal 2. So I'm intrigued by this discussion we're about to have.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Me too. I'm excited for you guys because the entire idea for this collaboration was your guys' dismissal of Portal 2 in the first episode. You guys had played Portal 1, and you sort of dismissed it as more Portal, and you guys could just go play Portal 1 if you wanted that. It went up against Dishonored, which you guys you hadn't played it. You didn't know the evolution.
You didn't know.
I think
we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
Correct. And I was like, no, you guys, this game is so good.
That was when you guys mentioned someone's pulling their hair out. It was Tyler. Tyler has no more hair now.
I almost had a car crash.
This moment.
I liken the evolution of Portal, from Portal to Portal 2. If you look at Mario 64 and Mario Odyssey, that took 20 years of evolution. All of that happened in one sequel with Portal. I think it is such a massive step up, and it's stellar experience all the way through. It's why we got up to #4.
So I guess let's jump right in.
Let's do that in a moment. Because beer.
I was about to say, you have to talk about
beer. What are you drinking, Zach?
I'm drinking a Rowan's Creek bourbon, actually, right now. It's one of my go-to drinkers. It's good stuff, but I typically go for Noah's Mill instead because it has more of that sarsaparilla interesting
I've got
flavor.
that on the shelf right now.
Yeah, it's good stuff, but I went for Rowan's Creek. It's a little bit more kind of classic bourbon taste, so yeah, that's what I went for. What about you?
I've got nothing special today, but I did find what I think to be my new everyday drinker, and that is a new IPA from Real Ale here in Austin. It is the Squirt Gun Juicy IPA. Lots of citrus, pretty subtle on the hops, and pretty great everyday drinker. It doesn't get too hoppy even at the at room temp if you let it set for a little bit, which a lot of IPAs are prone to. The hops might become a little overwhelming for some, but not with Squirt Gun from Real Ale Brewing. Either of you guys
Gameresque Zach. Yeah, what are you drinking, Gameresque Zach?
I don't drink, but I'm rocking a bubblegum G Fuel right now to get that caffeine
there we
going.
go.
Yeah. Gotta get that G Fuel.
We out here. Actually, this is my least favorite flavor I've tried. So, but shouts out to G Fuel. But don't get the bubblegum.
I've not tried G Fuel. I imagine that G Fuel will be my least favorite flavor.
It's it's maybe not for everyone, but it's a great way to get a bit. It's like the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, and it's just add to water and shake it and go. So
there you go.
I'm all about it.
Johnny, what you got?
There you have it. I ran off as soon as you mentioned alcohol and grabbed some of my own. I just cracked open a Samuel Adams Seasonal Summer Ale. Nice citrus wheat ale. I'm not like you, Tyler. I do not like an IPA. Like, hint of hops is a hint too much of hops. You know, I need it to be smooth.
Oh no,
easy,
I love IPAs.
Crisp. Yeah, no,
I love them.
I do not.
This is just a good everyday drinker.
IPA for me stands for I prefer anything else. I will drink just about anything but that flavor profile.
I was that way for a long time, but I had an extended weekend, and I bought 2 6-packs. I built 2 6-packs like at our local grocery store. They've got a bunch of single cans, and you can just build your own 6-pack. I forced myself to drink them, a wide variety of different IPAs. Because they're all the rage right now, or certainly were at the time, and I think still are. And I thought I had to be missing something, so I drank them at different temperatures, drank them over the course of that weekend, and it worked. I drink IPAs more than anything else now.
Don't do that to yourself, Johnny.
There you go. I might not, although I do, in my experience, albeit a minimal one because I grew up in Utah, so I didn't know many drinkers. But what I've gathered is a lot of people will have that IPA Rumspringa, either one way or the other, where
Rumspringa.
They're like me, they didn't like. Yeah, and they didn't like the IPA, and then they like something. The palate has changed once they get to a certain age. One way or the other, to where they're like, oh no, I actually really like IPAs these days. Or one of my good friends, when I first met him like 10 years ago, loved IPAs. Got like a double IPA. Hops on hops on hops. They called it jumps because of what he was drinking. It was nuts. And now he's completely on the other side of things, where it needs to be smooth, crisp. And it's the same thing with my cocktails too. I want something I can drink with breakfast. Not that I drink with breakfast, but like I want something I can wake up and just be like, that's nice. And now I'm a little happier. Like, what's wrong with that? You know, as opposed to like, this tastes like WD-40. Let me get some more of that. But again, maybe my palate will change
WD-40.
later on.
My favorite scotch in the world, I would call Band-Aid. Like, I love a punch in the face kind of drink.
My favorites are farmhouse ales. I like the funk. The wet sock taste, as your dad puts it, Zach.
Yeah.
Boy, you guys, you're really selling us on these beverages, you know.
Yeah,
forced myself to drink them. Punch me in the face with this wet sock Band-Aid flavor profile. I guess. I can't wait to hear you. I can't wait to hear you convince us about Portal 2.
Well, I mean, let's start with to get to like this, you have to first lick rubber. So go outside, go to your tires, and just lick some rubber. No,
right in the middle of summer.
Prime your palate.
A lot of people listening to us will probably be people who know Portal 2, maybe have even played it. So I want to hear from you guys. Like, what? Well, first of all, you see us put it this high, and you're like, what is wrong with these people? But then you boot it up and you play it. Like, what are you thinking? Kind of take us through your Portal 2 journey.
Johnny, do you want to go first?
Well, like, truly, like, pressure was on for me. I was like, okay, these guys freaking... Portal 2 darn near ran the bracket, you know, and so like let's see what this is about. And also, you know, she's a seasoned veteran, you know, she's not brand new, so I like to think I'm pretty good at putting that up. Be like, okay, this game came out in whatever, you know, 2008, like I'll respect it for what it is. This game, you know, whatever. I try not to hold games to like the 2019 standard, you know.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I was like, okay, like I had my preconceived notions, like, well, this is like a puzzle game, so like we'll see, you know. But honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, and that's why I said honestly.
Thanks for the clarification.
It knocked away my preconceived notions pretty quick. I was invested. I was committed. I was sold as soon as I heard Stephen Merchant. I was like, we got ourselves an experience here. We got ourselves a little bit of a game. And then a few hours in, you get yourself some J.K. Simmons. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right? Anytime there's J.K.
This is a
Simmons,
decent game we got here.
I don't want to take my hands off.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely blew away my, like, if I were to go back, I'm looking at the bracket. It beats Dishonored, and it definitely beats Arkham City for me, and then it's in the matchup with Skyrim, and that's where it gets hairy. But that's for...
Of course. I would never expect you guys to do that.
I'd never expect you to do that.
But there's no question that it's it should have beat Dishonored. That's an oversight on our part, especially after playing it. So, like, I will admit to that, and I think it's probably... I would even probably put it above Arkham City as well. But this is definitely the funniest game I think I've ever played. I was just laughing out loud for most of the time.
Yeah.
It is so freaking funny.
It was funny.
I was dead. Like, oh my gosh. And Stephen Merchant is incredible, but I mean, all of it was... Just the fat jokes at the beginning too, like, oh my god! And throughout, like, it's incredible.
I love it. She's such a petty B word.
Oh, she's the worst. It's incredible. I can't remember another experience with a characters treating the player character like that in any other game. Like it was incredible. I was dying laughing the whole time. I absolutely loved that aspect of it.
That's really refreshing to hear that you guys liked it. I'm actually going to be honest and upfront. I played this game a long time ago. I realized about halfway through, like from where you hit J.K. Simmons, I didn't actually ever finish it. So I kind of also had this fresh experience with it, like kind of post the J.K. Simmons part, which isn't much. There's not much of the game left after that, but that was cool to be able to experience that for the first time as well. But it makes me so happy that you guys liked this game.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's a riot, and I think for me, I kind of wrote here in my notes, like, what is this game without that writing, without that story? And it's just a puzzle game that's too long.
And that's why we knocked it out of the first round, because we assumed that. We didn't give credit to... Because also, like, in my head, I'm like, well, how much writing can you even put into a puzzle game? You know? Like, I literally, like... I considered this game... I was like, I basically held it in the same light as Tetris. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure the puzzles are a lot of fun, but, like, that's an app. That's not a video game, you know? And then...
Yeah, for sure.
You know... And then boom, like playing it, here we are. It's like, oh, never mind. Here's the game, and that's what makes it a game to me. Like the puzzle elements to it are good and fun and really creative for sure. And I feel like when they introduced new things, it all made sense. Every single bit of it made sense. And there were those little like the plot points that would really just like curveball you. You know, I don't know if we're avoiding spoilers because the game's a decade old.
No.
Absolutely not.
We are all about spoilers right now, so you go for it.
But when Stephen Merchant becomes the bad guy, and then you have to team up with Gladys, who was the bad guy in the first one. I didn't play the first one. Becomes a potato, like all this stuff, and like it was just like all of that. Like I bought every cent's worth. I was like, yep, I'm in. 100% makes sense. It was great. Awesome. The curveballs got me. Not a moment of it felt like, oh, come on, you know, like there was none of that. It was just like, oh, like justified. Checks out. I bought it. And that's the stuff that we didn't consider, that we weren't able to consider because we hadn't played it. But that's what makes it a game. That's the selling point. And like, kudos to the people who made Portal. Like, they get it. It's like, yeah, we don't want it to just, we want it to be a video game. We don't want it to just be freaking Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to do puzzles after puzzles,
Which is
and I think
sacrilege
I
to
would.
me.
Tyler is a huge.
Tetris is my favorite game of all time.
Yeah,
you are offending me personally down to my core.
I'm
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
All I'm saying is,
yeah, I know.
All I'm saying is,
99% of people are. I know.
I love Tetris. It's one of the few games. It's one of the few games my mom's ever played. But any game that I could play sufficiently while recording this podcast with you right now, it's probably not making it out of the first round.
Yeah. So Spider-Man was already out. We had God of War. What else did we have? Uncharted 4, Shadow of the Colossus remake. I didn't buy a PS4 yet. I bought a PS4. My launch title for PS4 was Tetris Effect.
Oh my god,
that's amazing.
I bought a PS4 for Tetris.
Yeah, this is what we're working. This is what I have to work with every week, guys. This is what I have to work with.
We can explore a third host for the Gameresque pod. Talk to us offline after.
Yeah, there we go. If you want to go over there.
Yeah, if you need somewhere to be, that's insane to me. Well, my launch title for the PS4, like my purchase title for the PS4 was a little indie game called FOMO, because I just got one like 4 months ago.
Yeah, your launch title was the catalog. Yeah. Was all of their catalog.
Yes, right. Yeah, it was like Spring Sale 2021. That was my launch title that got me. And yeah, I had a Facebook acquaintance of mine. Shouts out Justin Parlett, who posted he was selling his PS4, and I happened to be the first person who commented, DM'd him, got a good deal on it, and as we all know at the Gameresque podcast, I'm a sucker for a good deal, baby. And so I was like, it was a PS4 Slim, one controller, Bluetooth Bluetooth wireless headphones, and a 2 terabyte external hard drive, $250.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, I think that's my PlayStation, and
it's the time.
And the only reason why he sold it, the only reason why he sold it was because he got a PS5. I was like, yeah, great, and it works great, works like a charm. And now, look at me now. Now that I have it, I can dust off the PS3 and play Portal 2 with you guys.
Amazing. That's what you get for teaming up with the Unpatched guys. We cut deep. We cut deep.
Indeed.
Keep it old
I'm
school.
glad to hear you guys had that reaction to it. I guess that leads really quickly and easily into my next point, is like the gameplay. Then, like, what as a newcomer to Portal, like, did you feel yourself having to like change the way you think, like the whole advertisement campaign? Now you're thinking with Portals, right? What was your experience with that?
It's a good thing this game was so funny, and that kept me going, because I've never felt so dumb playing a video game in my life. I sucked at this game. I sucked so bad at this game. I could not wrap my head around all the physics and everything. And so after about 3 hours of beating my head against a wall, I started looking up solutions for the puzzles. But then, and actually we talked offline, Tyler and I about this, but I'm glad that I started doing that, to his point, because then I started seeing the solutions, and then I could start wrapping my head around like how to solve things as they came up.
The full concepts.
Yeah. And then it got easier, actually. So I'm glad I took Tyler's advice that he gave me and actually started, because I wanted to do it pure, like, it felt like I was cheating or something somehow. I'm like, the whole point of this game is the puzzles, and if I just look up how to do the puzzles,
right,
why am I even playing this game? It's a complete waste of my time. But then, so after about 3 hours of beating my head against the wall, and then about 2 hours of doing every puzzle by like trying it twice myself, and then looking up a walkthrough, then the last half of the game, like from the J.K. Simmons point on, I was able to pretty much muddle through with minimal, looking up stuff. So that felt really good. Yeah,
that's really cool to hear.
That is the thinking with Portals. I hadn't played since launch 2009. I played it twice. So it's been over a decade since the last time I played it. And I didn't remember any of the solutions. None of them. But I already knew how to, like, it's not a joke. It's not just a tagline, thinking with portals. I already knew how to do that. You mentioned it was the physics that you couldn't wrap your head around. Not because you're dumb, but because nothing in actual life requires your brain to work that way.
Yeah.
It is a new way of thinking. And
I think that's what makes it a good puzzle game.
Yes.
Definitely. It's
Absolutely.
like such a simple, like, you just basically go, here's a portal gun, and here's the physics of this world, and we are going to build 2 whole games out of this one concept. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's terrific, and it's very much like, this is our world, and you're playing in it. Like, this is, like, we make the rules, and this is how we're doing it. And they get you to buy in with the characters, with the script. Like, how compelling of a game is it that there's, I don't know, 3 characters, the two computers and freaking J.K. Simmons, and then you, but you don't, and then there's you, but you don't have any dialogue. So it's like how invested, how immersed can you get just with that? But they get you. They still have you.
Oh, they do.
So it says a lot to, like, the world that they build, how compelling the physics themselves are, and the puzzles of just like, no, I want to get this. I felt the same thing that my Zach did. I had to Google a couple of them, and I was just like, I had the same thought process of like, oh my god, dude, like, if we get down this rabbit hole, like, what's the point? I'm gonna speed through this thing, and I'm not even trying, you know.
Yeah.
But some of them were freaking hard. Some of the puzzles are tough, dude.
yes, they are. Even
Are there any that
even
stand
with
out for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, for all of us, I guess. Are there any that stand out? Not as hard, but, like, just really memorable ones for you guys? I know it's a weird question to pull, like, from a puzzle game. It's bizarre to ask. But, like, I have one moment in particular that really stood out to me is when they introduced the white, like, the goop. Like, you know, they have the blue goop, which you bounce on, and you got the orange goop that you run on. And when they introduced the white goop, which is, like, you can... anything that gets white goop on it, you can now portal. Like, that took me
now it's a portal service,
quite a while. Yeah, that took me, because that was new for me, and that took me, I think, the longest of any of the concepts to go, like, okay, like,
yeah,
what
I
am
was
doing?
watching you play that one, and I was watching you just, like, running in circles, trying to wrap your head around that. But that's all it takes is one time.
Yeah, and the
just
second I got, like, a
it.
really good one, and it started to make sense, but those really stood out because it's teaching you, because the whole game, you associate white walls or white this with portal. Like, I can portal that thing. And now you can distribute that if you know what you're doing, right, to put it where you need to be able to throw a portal. And then, which leads perfectly to the finale of the game, my favorite moment in the game, where you see the moon, and I didn't even make the association. I just clicked because I'm like, oh, white, portal. And then after I clicked, I was like, oh, wait, that makes... oh, my God. Like...
yeah. Yeah, it's so good. And actually, when you find the portal... I never caught this on my my initial playthroughs. When you pick up the portal gun in the very beginning of the game, you know, you've got the murals that the Rat Man had drawn. If you look up, there's a hole in the ceiling, and he's drawn the lunar cycle on the ceiling.
No way.
So he had done that, seemingly, or had planned to.
What were you going to say,
Right,
Johnny?
or at least theorized.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with the moon. I did the same thing with the moon, like, because, and it's set up so great. Like, honestly, that was one of the more memorable and fun boss fights. Like, it was fairly straightforward, you know, in premise. It was like, oh, this guy's gonna shoot bombs. I gotta use my portals that I've been using for so long to shoot him back and whatever. But I loved it, and there were a couple things that were just like quality of life stuff that I just don't think you'd get if they made the game now. Like, in that final boss scene, I had to die twice before like, in that final boss scene, I had to die twice before I even found where the corrupted core was, like the last corrupted core.
Sure.
Because the first two come up on the same platform, and then the third one's going to be the one that does it. And it's like, okay, great, the third one's here, it's going to kill it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I jump up there, can't find it. Eventually, like, the timer goes out, and the whole place blows up, and I revive. And I'm like, okay, where was it though? I swear I was looking. So I jump up there again on the second life, and I'm like, no, it's not here. And then right toward the end of that one, I noticed that they were shooting the speed goop on the floor. I was like, okay, wait, that's probably something. And then right at the end, I put it together. I was like, oh wait, let me shoot a portal there so I can, because I see it now. And then went up and ran out of time again and died. But it was like, so there were a couple things like that where I was like, well, if this game was made 2 years ago, like they would have pulled a little more focus or made it a little more obvious just to hold
like
the hand of the Gameresque player that is me. Yeah, right. Like
sure, like a tag on the HUD or something.
Just
yeah. I mean, I think I died
something.
3 times or 4 times during that. First, trying to find it, and then getting it down. Like I just wasn't landing my portal correctly. I think I did that part 4 times.
I think for me,
I only died twice. So mathematically, I'm twice.
I
as
am
good
more
at game
gamer.
as you are.
Correct. Yeah, that is 100%.
Yeah.
It holds
I
up.
think for me,
Numbers never lie.
One of the standouts was the platforming was really poor. Like anytime you had to like jump across things or move through a section that required you to kind of jump over a few blocks or something, that was pretty rough.
Oh,
like,
sure.
I think would be cleaned up quite a bit nowadays.
Yeah,
This game did not
that was
pass
a little,
the Molly
a little,
test.
Yeah.
No?
Oh, no. I was so mad
Oh, no.
at this freaking game. Oh, my gosh. It was brutal.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Did you finish it?
That's so funny. For those of us not on the Gameresque feed, the Molly test is something we patented. Molly is the name of my dog, and she gets startled fairly easily. She's a rescue. And so every time I rage at a game, I can rage a little bit, but there's a threshold that she won't tolerate, and then she'll go hide under the coffee table. And so we ask ourselves regularly whether or not it passes the Molly test. So that's interesting, because this game definitely... no, that's not true. No, this game failed the Molly test for me, too. I just remembered... Because we had talked in our group chat about when we were talking about the PS3 controller, just like going back in time like that. And I was like, I told you guys, I was like, it feels like a prop. What I wanted to say was it feels like I'm going to break it, but I couldn't say that because then that would admit that I basically tried to break my game. Or my controller, but a big portion of that, though, a big portion of my rage toward the game was the fact that controller, I think, was it is still an antique from the PS3 launch, so the buttons like don't work, and sure. So like I would just randomly, I'd be like nearly done with the level, finally figured it out, finally have the portals, go to run through it, and then L2 just starts spazzing. Just like rapid fire shooting portals wherever I'm looking. I'm like, no, what are you doing? I forgot where I put it. Like I had it,
Yeah.
So then I would go ahead. I'd sit up and I'd freaking just like because I was convinced that the reason if the controller's broken, let's just break it back. So let's reset the bone, So I'd give it the old 1, 2, 3 against the arm of the couch, and then sure enough it would stop for a while. So I can't say I'm wrong. So
yeah, there you go. I think that's fair.
So, but it's hard to tell if the game failed the Molly test or just the controller itself failed the Molly test. I guess I'll have to run it back.
The controller's one of the worst controllers ever made. I might say. I
right.
hate
Well,
it.
Especially when you think to the fact that the one I was using was 15 years old. Could have a learner's
mine
permit.
Mine are too, yeah. Mine
I mean, like these
also
could
just as old.
Yeah, I mean, like they could be driving in the car if their parent was in shotgun. Like we should be operating technology with things of this caliber.
Yeah. So did you not plug in your DualShock 4?
No, I know that was the note that you gave, and I loved that, but I had either beat the game or was like really close. So I was in like the final hour or two.
Okay.
And so by that point I had just accepted it, and also the controller I have or the cord that I have is what we in the industry say really short. So I couldn't sit anywhere comfortably.
For sure. You just like being really close to the TV. Old school CRT days.
Yeah, right. I'm like,
well, you got that in your back pocket
exactly.
now if you ever go
Saturday
back
morning
for
cartoons.
PS3 games.
I might have to. I have Kingdom of Amalur Reckoning and it's like, do I want to play that or do I want to buy Re-Reckoning? If it's on sale,
you want
I'll
to
get
buy
it 'cause I'm a sucker
Re-Reckoning
for a good deal. Right, but only if it's on sale because I'm a sucker for a good deal. If it's not on sale, maybe I'll play Reckoning with right, just cross-legged, sitting on the rug right in front of the TV, Saturday morning cartoon style, staring at the TV, telling my parents telling me that my eyes are going to go bad. Joke's on you, parents. I still have 20/20 vision. Beat that.
Oh,
Joke's on them.
Yeah. Old people. Sigh. No,
shouts out to my parents. Shouts out to the parents out there. Big fans of my show for sure. Absolutely, no doubt at all. My mom, when I started our podcast, told me she was sorry because she didn't know how to watch it. So yeah,
incredible. She sounds incredible. I love her. Okay.
She's diehard. She's Gameresque for sure.
Oh yeah, no, she's a Tetris master though.
Bingo.
For me, something that stood out playing, especially because I played most of the game already, was something. I guess Tyler, this is more for you and me. Is it's really designed like that classic old school Mario game. Like you establish. The beginning is pretty, just kind of learning to think with portals, but then it really gets into here's a gimmick, and we're just going to build on it for the next couple rooms. And then we'll either use that gimmick with another one that we'll introduce, which will introduce that one separately and then bring them together. Or, it's very much like, World War I, here's how you jump, and here's how you do this. Oh, here's a gimmick, a little swing in World, 2-1 or whatever in Mario. And then they're going to bring that swing back, at the end of the level and really push you. It'll give you a little safety net at the bottom on the first swing, but then you get to the next swing, and maybe it mixes in something introduced from a world previously. Like, it's very much designed like a Mario game. Does that ring true for you?
Yeah. The way the new mechanics are doled out, I could agree with that.
Yeah,
I didn't make that connection, but you're right.
Yeah, and that's always kind of like the the first baby's first game design course is always kind of talking about that stuff. So that stood out
always. To me. I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard about 1-1. Leave me alone with Mario 1-1.
It's that important.
It's not only like baby's first game design, but it's also like baby's first game critique YouTube video. It's like, quit it. Everybody else has already talked about that.
It's pretty core though, man, and it works. It's really easy analogy.
Sure,
I get
but
why
I don't need a
there.
900th YouTube video telling me about
you
Mario
don't,
1-1.
but someone else might. It's. I think it's still useful. I think it's still useful.
It's interesting. It's interesting you draw the parallel between Portal 2 and the Mario games because Zach and I have different opinions on the Mario games. Basically the fact that they're just entitled to that sweet 97 score on Metacritic.
That's it.
But I just looked it up. Portal came super close, 95. And if you look it up, I think it's actually a rule at Metacritic that any Super Mario game that came out after 2006 is entitled to a 97 Metacritic score. So it's pretty tough because they only shell out so many of those, per generation even. But Portal 2 came really close with that 95. That's pretty good for what those of us who were Gameresque deemed it as a puzzle game.
Too bad it wasn't Super Mario Portal. Then it would have gotten a 97.
Oh, that 97.
No question.
Yeah.
I'd
play that game.
And that's on branding.
I wonder what are some other highly rated puzzle games on Metacritic.
I bet you're freaking.
We watch or listen to The Long and Short of It. Shouts out to the Long and Short of It podcast. They go through the Metacritic top 100 video games, and on the top 100 video games of all time is
wait for it, Tetris,
World of Goo.
World of Goo.
So that's a very highly rated one as well.
Not
but
as
they
good
make
as Portal
some.
2.
Of course not. But they make the interesting observation as you guys did. There were not as many ratings back then. What is that, 2008? So games back then are sort of solidified, where now you have hundreds of thousands of reviews going in to affect the Metacritic score for new games.
You look at the video games these days that have like 400 Game of the Year awards, and it's like, okay, well, you can't. Does that make it a better video game than like these other iconic ones, or does it make the iconic ones like they only had 6 games to compete with? So are they really that iconic, or is it nostalgia? It's an interesting culture, but that's why we're here. That's why we're here, boots on the ground, doing the dirty work, making the video game podcasts.
Braid
awesome.
93, also very highly rated.
That's one of Tyler's favorites.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I guess
Highly
here's a,
highly rated.
Oh gosh, we can cut that. Cut that in post, please.
Braid.
Oh no,
with
that's
Yeah, cut that. That was
no, absolutely. We don't cut things here.
Oh man. Oh no. Bad news. Bad news.
serious.
maybe we should implement a new culture because that was rough.
So I guess a really interesting question for the guys who played it for the first time would be like, did it remind you of anything, or was this like a pretty unique experience for you guys?
It's pretty unique. I couldn't think of anything that was like, oh, this is like. There wasn't any moments where I was like, oh, this is just like X or Y. Like Spider-Man, the other game we're kind of talking about in our crossover. Like obviously, when you're first introduced to the combat, it's like, oh, this is kind of like Arkham, or like. And I couldn't think of any of those parallels outside of the 30 minutes I played of Portal one time. I was like, that's the only thing. It was like, oh, I remember doing this when I played Portal for a minute. Like, so it does seem pretty singular to me. I don't know, Johnny, did it remind you of anything?
Yeah, completely agree. It reminded me of that one semester when you and I were at Utah State doing anything but going to class, and we decided to play Portal for like a weekend, and it was fun and whatever. But again, like that was just Portal and not Portal 2, and it was just like, okay, cool. And like after an hour or so, I felt like I got the concept, and because it was like, oh yeah, you shoot the 2 different portals, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I like puzzles. I like puzzle games. I like solving that stuff. But that was the only thing it was reminiscent of for me. And I thought it was really unique. I mean, I don't remember a game that in the first half you've got your companion, and then in like the first at like the first real big plot point, they become the villain. And not only that, but the villain through necessity becomes your ally. And then also they at like the 2/3 mark, when they introduced J.K. Simmons as the guy who created the place, you like fell through this thing, and you're no longer in the test facilities for like a couple hours. You're just running around like trying to get out of this like giant chasm that you fell into. You know, like it was like the whole thing, and I think that kind of embodies Portal 2 itself, as Tyler was talking about earlier. Like, you know, you're thinking with portals, and like we're giving you this unique physics and this unique gameplay. It's like we're also gonna like we'll throw curveballs at you. We're gonna change it up on you, just like we changed it up on you with the concept of the game and how it's played. Throughout the game, we're gonna change it up on you too, and we're gonna you're gonna think you're just gonna have to go through these 19 tests and then beat the boss. Nope, curveball. And then you're going to get sent down to the bottom, and you got to try and trudge your way through the mud and listen to J.K. Simmons talking about how they're going to pay you $60 to go through this test and whatever.
I love it.
If you're interested in earning another $60, amazing.
Right.
In other news, we now have a
Mantis
Mantis Men killing test.
Oh, I love
That was the best bit. The Mantis Men could pick up a rifle.
Right. You'll know exactly when the test has begun. Like that's
Exactly.
a funny game. But again, like that was like a third of the game. You're down there sloshing through the mud and just like trying to figure out how to get like on the other side of these. Like it gave a whole different set of puzzles, set of rules of like, hey, you got to get past this debris. You got to get through like the old aperture stuff, and it's just going to hammer home that resourcefulness and that ingenuity that you've been learning. To the point, but it's far enough in the game that you're not shocked by it. You're not going to quit because that like, oh, I don't know, like you've done enough puzzle solving. You're in that mind frame. I think it's a well done game, man.
Yeah, I think you
it.
hit the nail on the head there. I think more articulately than I could have. Just the way they not only changed the puzzles and evolve the puzzles and mix and match them, but like they're changing the whole space and like the context for why you're there even. Like I think that's a really good point. And you know, like I think we all said at the beginning, if the characters and story were stripped out of this, like I don't think I could play this game for 11 hours. Or however long I played
this
it.
game is requires the full package. The music as well, the sound design, the characters, the voice work, the gameplay itself. The puzzles. It requires all of it to be firing on all cylinders to work, and it does that for the whole playthrough. In my opinion.
How long did you guys spend trying to shoot a portal and step through and backpedal so you could try and see your character? Was I the only one who spent like an hour doing that?
No, you're not the only
doing
one. That is a rite of passage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
No, I'm right there with you, man. Don't you
know,
worry.
it's like, wait, like, hey, who am I? Who is this cat running around with this portal gun? Like, let's see.
You have to fire.
What's on her
a
legs?
portal, further away from you. So, like, if you're standing in front of a wall, fire a portal, and then fire it at the end of the hallway, so you can see both portals at the same time. Then you'll be able to see yourself.
See, this is why I got to go back and play it. This is why it's such a good game. The replay value. The replay.
That's the replay value.
You want to know? When I remember first playing this game, I was sold immediately because obviously Stephen Merchant comes in, but he's like, "Can you just say something? Say something. Tell me you're okay." And it tells you to press space to talk to him, and you just jump. You're like, oh, "Okay, that's jumping. We're getting close. Let's try again." Like, it's just so good, man.
Tries again. Nope, still jumping. All right, that's fine. No, it was
really good.
Like,
yeah.
that's great. Like, that's great. Like, that's so good and so smart and funny. And yeah, dude, it was a great game. It was a great game.
Yeah, I also
it was snubbed. It was snubbed in the first round of our tournament.
I would agree. I've not seen any other game that can make a puzzle game just as much an equally like big budget action blockbuster movie. Like, it's both at the same time, and it just works throughout the whole thing. I thought it was a perfect game. I was making the argument that it might be a perfect game before we replayed it. But I see now it's got a couple things that maybe, could use some improvement after this 11 years.
So I guess that's a good question, though, is does this game hold up? Because, you guys are really good about taking into account the time something came out and that kind of stuff. But totally throwing that out the window, how do you feel this game holds up?
Honestly, it's pretty good. Like, I was pretty impressed. I was
holds up
expecting
great.
worse. Yeah, like, I was definitely expecting it to feel worse than it did. There's a few things, and you kind of mentioned, like, when you're trying to, some of the, like, jumping and stuff, like, I would get caught on things, and that would make me then rage really a lot. But that's, but outside of that, like, really, it was rare that I felt like I was mad because just due to, like, time. Like, it held up pretty remarkably.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like
thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on that. Like, so much of it held up. Like, I mean, how long have we been sit here already gushing about the humor and all of the elements that we loved? Like, I think if it got a remaster, the only thing they'd have to tweak is, like, little things like that, like the graphics and some of the, like, moving mechanics and physics. But, like, they wouldn't, like, need to adjust anything. That and just, like, give me more of the game, because I don't want it to end,
Yeah. Bring Stephen Merchant back. Let's do this.
Honestly.
Portal 3,
if you're playing on PC, there's a few pretty easy to install and robust graphics mods. I played with a graphics mod, and it looked great. I actually restarted about 2.5 hours in. I found the graphics mod. I was like, oh yeah, this is worth just starting over.
Yeah,
because it was
cool.
so good. What did it for me, though, what really made me realize, this is rough, the loading. I'm playing on a modern machine and still get 10-second load times. It is insane. And I looked at some mods to hopefully get rid of that. And I don't know for sure. I could be totally wrong here. So, please correct me, anybody, if I am wrong, but it seems like it's baked into the game, some of those load times. Because the mods were talking about removing timers. So it seems like the loading is actually based on some timing that is happening under the hood, which is unfortunate.
Okay.
So it's hard to actually work around.
Because, I mean, and I agree with you.
Deal.
I agree so much because the game is so much about pacing and, like, trying to build this really, like Jonny was saying, just it'll constantly, pull the rug out from under you, always something new. And when you have to sit between every puzzle and wait for a loading time, it breaks that continuity.
Goodness.
And if you ripped that out, this game would be so clean. I think it would be a perfect pacing for, like, just a video game. It would work so well. It's a real shame they're there. Yeah.
And
and
makes
especially
sense that they're there for older consoles, but it seems to be an intrinsic part of how it's made. Actually,
what was that, Jonny?
Totally, but if this game was made today, it would be so easy to use writing in the elevator as the load time, like they do in games like God of War has 0 load screens because it's like, oh yeah, every time you're opening the door, we're gonna give you this, we're gonna give you this little graphic that loads the next part of the place. And so they could easily do that with the elevator. Like, you beat the level, you get in the elevator, and it just shoots down. We'll give you more Stephen Merchant as you're going down the thing while we're loading the next puzzle.
This is a brilliant idea.
Win-win.
More Stephen Merchant is always a good idea.
Absolutely.
Correct.
That's always the answer.
This is correct.
Amazing.
So, I want to circle back to a question that Zach asked earlier, and that's a puzzle that stood out. After you get all 3 gels, the bouncy gel, the speed gel, and the portal gel, there's a room that uses all 3 of them. Several rooms use all 3 of them once you get them, but the speed gel and the bounce gel are pouring from tubes right next to each other that are suspended from the ceiling, and then off somewhere else you get the portal gel, and you've got to like get the speed gel in a suspended cage, sort of removed off the map just a little bit, and it's like a long hallway that's suspended. You've got to get it up there and then bounce off of a ramp that's also there to go to another part of the map while spraying the gel and like turning one of the platforms upside down. It's really involved, not particularly complicated, especially once you've seen it once. It's not particularly complicated, but it's just it encapsulates all of the concepts perfectly, in my opinion. That one's definitely my favorite.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like that one a lot. I know the one you're talking about, and I loved it. Just like, I feel like the difficulty of the puzzles was paced pretty perfectly to the point where, like, I got to the one like that, and it was like I didn't solve it instantly. When I got into that one specifically, I felt overwhelmed. I was like, holy crap, there's so many like walls here. I'm gonna have to figure out some way to shoot some gel over here with the portal. What does that mean? There's that box over there that I gotta grab. All this stuff, but I was so comfortable in the game. I was so attuned to just like the game and what they had that I was able to crack the code pretty quickly. There was another one where I got it. There was a cube that was suspended in a glass cube in the middle of the thing.
Oh,
and
yes.
I just knew it. And I just knew instantly, like, I'd been playing it long enough, and I was just, like, in the Portal 2 zone. Yeah. Where I was like, oh, and there's this bouncy gel that's shooting over here. I know instantly I'm going to pour a portal there, another one right above there. And I trust this game to let me shoot this down there, and that cube is going to bounce around and break itself out of the glass. And sure enough, it did. Now,
and then you have to go chasing it.
Did I... Right, yeah, and then it's bouncing all over. Now, did I have to... was that one of the puzzles I had to Google on how to solve at the end? Of course. But I didn't have to Google that part.
Very good.
There you go. Yeah, I think testament to the design that really I didn't feel cheated by any of the puzzles. I didn't feel like any of them like were stretching, that were trying to use the mechanics in a way they hadn't previously established. It's pretty consistently okay. That's fair. Is my response if I didn't know the answer to one. Like okay, that makes sense. I see now how I could have thought of that instead.
Yeah, and there was something that felt so satisfying. One of my favorites. It was a little earlier on before the goo is introduced, but it is one that like keeps catapulting you up, and you have to keep unlocking like more catapults as you go up, or not like launch pad things.
Yeah. I know.
And then you go back down to the bottom.
Large room.
Yeah, it's a huge room, and you have to keep going back to the bottom and launch up, and then like, oh my gosh! And then by the end, when you start at the bottom and you like launch like 3 or 4 times, that was such a satisfying when you finally got that and like just launched all the way through this massive room. That was a
man, and that moment is the only one I noticed them do this. But if you guys checked out our Game of the Year episode last year, we opened talking about music. I love music in video games. The soundtrack that took it last year was for a puzzle game called Creaks, and the soundtrack does it for me anyway. I listen to that kind of music on the daily. That's just my kind of music. But what they did there, it's like otherworldly, kind of haunting, like a lot of jazz instruments in there, but it doesn't feel like it's of this plane. So anyway, they've already got that going for it, and there's so much depth in that soundtrack, like so many instruments layered on top of each other. But as you're going through each of these large segments, and there's a bunch of puzzles in each of the segments, you hear very stripped down versions of the soundtrack, of the particular track in question. And then as you solve parts of the puzzle, they start to layer on top of each other and act as a hint system. Like as you walk towards something, it'll start layering on new parts of the soundtrack to tell you, hey, you're on the right track. It's really awesome auditory cues. And they did that in this section, but only once. It was really great. It was definitely, not a callback because this game came out a decade earlier, but sort of like, to me, a callback to Creaks. And I wish they would have explored that more with the electronic music that they're going for.
Because they do that anyway for like specific moments on some of the harder puzzles I've noticed, where it's like it'll like start to really play that music, but not as intricately, you're right, as they did in that puzzle.
Yeah, and then they always have like little tunes that are going for like while you're on the gel or you're bouncing. They've got things that are thrown in there, but they use it to that particular effect when you're in that room.
Yeah.
They did also have they had light cues though throughout. I noticed by the end, like
good point.
Like it was,
things are telegraphed
like
very well in this game,
right? But not
with the exception, a huge
like,
exception.
Here you go.
Yeah, definitely not. But a huge exception being right there at the end. I also had a hard time finding that last personality cube during the boss fight. But otherwise, I think the game was very well telegraphed without being hand-holdy.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Johnny. I didn't even think about that.
It's
so natural.
And that's probably... Yeah, and I didn't even realize it till like most of the way through, but it was like, oh, like I'm drawn, like we as people are drawn to look at things that are spotlit, lit up, all that, and I'm like, oh, that's also like there happens to be one light still around here, like I'm thinking specifically in the J.K. Simmons segment where it's like, oh, there happens to be like a light that's shining on this wall. Let me see if I can hit it with a portal. Sure enough, I can. Yeah, so I appreciate that. But yeah, again, not in a hand-holdy way. But I think maybe that's part of the reason why it was hard for us to get that last corrupted core for the final boss, because it was like, hey, like, you're supposed to tell me where to find stuff. You know, like, subconsciously I'm depending on you. I didn't realize it, but like, what gives?
Yeah, it's like a really dark part of the area, too. Like, it's like
but then also
the
hidden
effect.
away from the section that you already are in.
Yeah, I agree. That was
right. Well, and
a silly one.
And also, to bring it back to what I said earlier, like, you've already rewarded me twice for jumping up on this platform. So, like, I'm gonna, like, third time's a charm. I'm gonna assume the third one's coming from this platform. You know,
100%.
so like, if you're gonna change it, like, you make it a little more clear. I don't know.
No, I think
right.
that's absolutely fair, 100%. Well, I really only have one more question, and it's kind of an adjusted question of what you guys usually ask after 10-hour caps, and it's like, who is this game for? Like, you guys usually ask, like, who would you recommend it to? I think it's a totally fair way to phrase it, but, like, who is Portal 2 for? I think that's an interesting question. You know, Tyler and I are all about sharing games. We knew that, like, this is one we really wanted to share with you guys. And so I guess, you know, a question for myself, too, is, like, who is this game for? What do you guys think?
That's a great question. Johnny, what do you think?
Honestly, like, I would say a good amount of people, yeah, we talked about, like, raging a little bit, but hey, that's part of the video game experience. Like, I would say, like, most people. Like, I think most people would enjoy it. I don't know that most people would, like, play it through to finish it, but, like, I think there's a little something in there. Even if you've never played a video game before, it's like, all right, listen, dude, you can beat the thing in, like, less than 10 hours if you try. And even if you don't want to, we've got the humor in it, and we've got, like, this strikingly compelling story, considering you don't get to choose who you are and you don't ever get to hear yourself say anything. The world is just, being received through your eyes. You're still, like, you're gonna wonder, because, like, for me, I had no context of the lore or the world or anything, but it was all peppered in so nicely. Even, like, the exposition in the J.K. Simmons dungeon, you know, where he's like, yeah, those things were super funny, but they also let us know, like, oh, this was a test facility for a really long time. And it had, like, all of these things with it, and you can see, like, you can hear what it was and what it was going to be, and now you're walking through it and you can see what it is. Like, they do a good job of, like, letting you know what the game is. You don't have to have ever played any video game before, because it's so simple. It's like, push button 1 for the portal, push button 2 for the portal you want to go out of. You know, like, it's really easy. Like, I feel like it's one you could introduce someone to video games with, but also, like, it's stimulating and engaging enough for someone who's played video games. So I think it's for just about everybody.
I wholeheartedly agree, especially after all four of us enjoying it to such a great degree. Totally opposite sides of the spectrum. And as someone who had played it before, knowing that you guys would get what you got out of it with that initial recommendation, and seeing that to have, you know, held true, I do think this game is for pretty much everyone. Zach, your mom is playing it right now.
Yeah, my mom is currently playing this game.
So I think it's
that's awesome.
It's a pretty unique experience, unlike pretty much anything else on the market, and we'll play on pretty much a toaster. So that's great.
Or a potato.
Right.
Yeah, or a potato.
As long as you're willing to, as long as you're willing to endure those toaster load times. That's the
Well, you have to anyway. We're both playing on modern
times.
PCs and still get those load times.
Right.
So they're baked into the experience, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this game is definitely for anybody, especially like someone like Johnny or I's profile who play games and maybe just missed this. Maybe you didn't have, like, a PC at the time that you could play it on, or the platform, or whatever. Like, for whatever reason you missed it, I would tell anybody, go back and play it, that it holds up. Like, 100%. If you're a gamer and you missed this, play it. For sure. That would be my strongest recommendation. But yeah, I think you could recommend it to anybody.
And that's a good point. It's unfortunately, like, PC or older consoles. Can you do you know, Tyler, if you can download it on PS4 as like a, like, I don't think you can download PS3 games like that,
No,
right?
PS3. The only way to play PS3 games are to stream them on PS4 with what is it,
so,
like PlayStation Now?
Yeah, so it's really hard to get nowadays if you don't have a PC or a good old PS3 sitting around.
It will play on most anything that you could purchase, unless you've got a Chromebook. Pretty much anything in the past 6 or 7 years.
Your laptop
you
can
get
probably
it to
run it. Yeah, it'll that fan will go, but it'll work. That's good. That's good stuff. Well, I think this has been awesome. Anybody have anything they want to say at the end? I think we've covered it pretty good.
Put J.K. Simmons and Stephen Merchant in all video games possible is my takeaway.
Yes, that is. Let's start.
Can
this
you even call
petition
yourself
now.
a video game if you don't have J.K. Simmons? Can you even call yourself a work of art if J.K. Simmons is not involved? That's my question. Honest question.
Now, I'll take it one step further. I want to see Stephen Merchant, J.K. Simmons in some sort of a buddy cop film.
Oh my
Very
gosh!
interesting.
I would pay for that movie 1,000 times over. That's
Absolutely.
incredible. Especially if Stephen Merchant becomes the bad guy halfway through.
Yes,
Dude, it's in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, we're ready with it. Well, that's it, guys. Make sure you know before you go that definitely check out the Gameresque podcast. It's at Gameresque Pod on social media platforms. You guys want to shout out your personal Twitter too?
Yeah, you can find me at ZMoneyWatts on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, I am at Jonny Byrne Official because Johnny Byrne was taken. And Jonny is spelled with no H, so it's JONNYBYRNE Official on Instagram, and just at Jonny Byrne on Twitter, still no H.
Sweet. Yeah, and guys, for part 2 of this episode, make sure you go over to their feed. That's where you're going to find the Spider-Man portion of this episode. We love doing this collab. Super fun stuff. Make sure, give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff on whatever platform. Make sure also to check out our Discord, which you can get access to through our Patreon. Just $2 tier. We'd love to have you there, trying to build up that community, doing some cool stuff there. But that is it. Tyler, anything else?
Don't forget, folks, don't forget to share what you love with who you love. And we will be back in a couple weeks, starting a new series, jumping into 3D platformers. No pun intended, though I'll take it. 3D platformers with Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, and It Takes Two. Jumping into a 4 or 5 week series with that. So definitely stay tuned. Stick around for that. Lots of fun. Lots of weird ones in there. Not all mascot platformers, but definitely plenty of those. We'd love to have you.
Yep,
and
thanks,
that
guys.
is all for me.
Yeah, take it easy. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having us.